welcome to today's webinar, Evaluating the Impact of Patient Engagement Programs on Medication Outcomes. We're excited you could join us. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's event. I'm happy to introduce our speaker for today, Josh Konetzni, who is a subject matter expert on evaluating the performance of patient engagement programs. Josh is a Senior Vice President and Head of Business Development at VMS Biomarketing. He's also held senior leadership roles in sales, business development, and marketing at Adhere Tech, MMIT Norstella, Alliance Health, Remedy Health Media, and Undertone. Josh has spent his career providing innovative solutions to the healthcare industry across a wide range of technology, data, and marketing-driven initiatives. Before getting started, we have a few simple housekeeping matters for our viewers. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find some application widgets for your use. These widgets are all resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to optimize your desktop space. The slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button in the top right-hand corner of your presentation window. So Josh, with that, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. Really appreciate it and appreciate everyone's time. So in an era of booming pharma investment into patient engagement support programs, one pressing question looms large. Is the soaring funding being matched by a proportional growth in rigorous impact measurement? And as pharmaceutical companies channel ever-increasing resources into these patient-centric initiatives, the need for robust and comprehensive measurement becomes not just an option, but an imperative. And the key to unlocking the true potential of patient support really lies not only in the size of the investment, but in the depth of the impact assessment. Today, I am very excited to talk about key performance indicators to demonstrate impact of patient engagement programs, to talk about methods utilized to measure the most relevant metrics, understanding what are the specific drivers of patient support programs that are contributing to this impact, and advanced analytic tools that are being enabled by program data to elevate the quality of support that can be provided to patients. And so before diving in, let's quickly get grounded on really what's driving this increased investment. So in recent years, a seismic shift has occurred really in the healthcare landscape, and patients are no longer content just simply following doctor's orders and accepting medications without question. We know that. And instead, they have become really proactive advocates of their own health. They're seeking more from the pharmaceutical industry than ever before. And this compelling transformative transformation is really driven by several factors. It includes an increase in access to health information. There's, of course, technological advancements, and there's a growing emphasis on patient-centered care. And as patients' needs evolve, their expectations of pharmaceutical patient support programs are very much so on the rise. So first, patients now have unprecedented access to information through the internet, social media, and patient support groups, and they're armed with knowledge. They actively participate in the treatment decisions, and they're demanding personalized care that aligns with their unique circumstances and their preferences. And second, patients are seeking holistic support beyond their medication that address their physical, their emotional, and really their social well-being. And they desire comprehensive patient support programs that not only manage their conditions, but also focus on prevention, lifestyle changes, and even mental health support. Third, in an era defined by technology, patients expect seamless integration of digital health tools into their treatment journeys. We're talking about mobile apps, telemedicine, remote monitoring, and virtual consultations. These are no longer novel concepts to us all. They're now expected components of patient support programs. And then next, a one-size-fits-all solution is just no longer going to cut it. Patients are seeking personalized treatment plans that are really tailored to their needs, their individual needs, and looking at everything from genetic profiles, lifestyle choices. Really, pharma's call to action is to leverage data analytics and precision medicine to create these patient-centric interventions. And then the last point, patients no longer want to be mere customers sitting back and instead they want to seek enduring partnerships with pharmaceutical companies. They want to foster long-term relationships. So really pharma has the opportunity to better understand patients' evolving needs and deliver that continuous support to patients. So the evolution of patient needs and the rising tide of expectations are really shaping a new era in healthcare, and one call that essentially calls for a paradigm shift in how the industry is approaching patient support. Embracing a better kind of centeredness of patient centricity, harnessing cutting edge technology, and really fostering transparent communication. These are all pillars of really transformative patient support programs and how they can be built. All right. And in the face of an ever-changing healthcare landscape and the rise of patient empowerment, the pharmaceutical industry is taking swift and decisive action. They're recognizing the pivotal role of patient engagement and support, and pharma companies are now on a mission to rapidly increase their investment and really their effort into these transformative initiatives. Pharma's realization that patient centricity is not just a buzzword, it's the future. It's the future of healthcare, and it's fueling the urgency and their ability to invest in these types of programs. So really putting patients at the heart of the decision-making is empowering them, it's fostering trust, and it's driving better health outcomes.
Pharma is certainly leveraging technology to engage patients in more meaningful ways.
That is right, Megan. Patient feedback is now more valued than ever before, and pharma is seeking, and they're actively seeking patient insights through so many different means, surveys, focus groups, advisory boards. It's all kind of allowing for tailored support programs that can really resonate with patients and their unique needs. And recognizing that patients that they cannot just navigate the patient-centric landscape alone. Like pharmaceutical companies are forging strategic collaborations to help them to provide the right support to patients, and that might be with patient advocacy groups, healthcare providers, maybe even digital health startups. These are all partnerships that strengthen the support ecosystem and enhance ultimately patient outcomes. Lastly here, the support of regulatory bodies such as the FDA in promoting patient engagement programs has really encouraged pharma's swift actions as well. So, there's incentives for investing in patient support programs, and that's really helped to also propel the industry forward. So in embracing the transformative, potential of patient engagement, the pharmaceutical industry is really taking, some really big strides, towards a future where the healthcare is pretty much, it's patient driven. That's really where it's becoming. It's, much more compassionate, and it's frankly much more effective from that standpoint. So in the current state, there is still a divide. And that divide is between what patients consider to be important and what patients are saying biopharma, like what biopharma is actually delivering today. And this gap is what the industry is really seeking to solve, to narrow that gap as much as possible, through an increased investment in patient engagement. And this investment has a direct impact on health outcomes. Engaged patients are more likely to follow prescribed treatment regimens, to participate in preventative measures, and manage chronic conditions effectively. And this leads to reduced hospitalizations, better disease management, and an improved overall quality of life, which is what we're, of course, aiming for. And at the same time, this improvement in health outcomes directly influences the commercial success of pharmaceutical companies. So investing in patient engagement creates stronger brand revenues through reduced abandonment, as well as improved adherence. So investments in patient engagement and support are not merely financial decisions, but also are instrumental in elevating the brand's reputation, the pharmaceutical company's reputation. So by empowering patients, improving health outcomes, and driving commercial success, patient engagement holds the key to unlocking really a future where patients are at the center of their healthcare journey. So as patient engagement has become a crucial component of pharmaceuticals commercial strategy. It's no longer an afterthought of these programs, and there's really some essential multiple reasons for that. The obvious one, of course, is measuring the impact allows pharmaceutical companies to assess the effectiveness of these patient support programs. So it helps to determine if these programs are achieving their intended goals and producing the desired results. So it also can help with data-driven decision making. So companies can use insights that they're learning from these programs to refine and enhance the programs. So tailoring these programs to better meet the needs of patients, through positive changes and optimizations. And this refinement can extend beyond efficacy to also efficiency. So data from these programs can help with resource allocation and ensuring that investments are directed towards strategies that provide the highest ROI, the highest return on investment. And in addition to being valuable to a pharmaceutical company, with these patient support programs, measuring impact really generates valuable evidence that can be presented to other stakeholders. So that might include regulatory bodies, healthcare providers, payers, investors even. Really demonstrating the positive impact of these patient support programs can foster trust and support with these stakeholders. And in fact, with more and more drugs needing to continue this, showing efficacy after approval, some regulatory bodies and also payers may require that pharma companies are actually demonstrating this impact, actually showing that and ensuring compliance in certain types of standards. So measuring impact allows companies to really meet those reporting requirements.
And as the healthcare industry becomes more patient-centric, pharmaceutical companies are competing to stand out and demonstrate their commitment to patient well-being, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So measuring impact allows companies to differentiate themselves to, really in the positive impact of these patient support programs. Absolutely. So to finish this off, lastly, a greater emphasis on measurement really helps to identify potential risks and challenges that are associated with patient support programs. It allows companies to proactively address these issues, to implement mitigation strategies, and really to avoid any types of negative consequences. So patient engagement and support programs are vital to delivering patient-centric care within the pharmaceutical industry. So a well-structured measurement plan is essential for evaluating the effectiveness and impact of a pharmaceutical patient support program. And a lot of what we're going to go over is around that measurement, and it enables biopharma companies and their solution providers to make sure that appropriate and relevant data is identified, it's captured, it's analyzed, and reported to address specific brand needs. And the plan also helps verify that changes and improvements are incorporated so that we can increase the effectiveness and deliver on the objectives that the brand intends. So the first step is defining the program objectives. So we want to identify the specific goals and objectives of the patient support program. And these objectives should be clear, measurable. They need to be aligned with the program's intended outcomes, such as reducing abandonment, improving adherence. And setting baselines or benchmarks before implementing patient support programs is also very helpful to give a reference point for assessing the impact effectiveness over time. You're comparing essentially a test versus control to some degree. And from there, you must determine the KPIs, key performance indicators, that will measure the success of the program. And these KPIs should align with the program's objectives and can include metrics such as patient satisfaction scores or patient RX fill rates, et cetera. And based on the KPIs that you're looking to measure, it's important to select appropriate methods to collect relevant data for the identified KPIs, like surveys. This will likely require data collection. There'll be tools like questionnaires, can capture necessary information for each KPI. And you can ensure that these tools are user-friendly. You want to ensure that they're capable of providing actionable insight, which is obviously critical, And additionally, just training personnel that will be utilized or administered to collect data. That's also an important aspect. That could be like a clinical nurse educator who's there to get feedback from the patients that they're working with. And once implemented, we'll want to monitor the program's progress and measure those identified KPIs at predefined intervals. And this allows for a real-time evaluation. It allows for timely adjustments to improve the program outcome. And beyond that, just capturing and monitoring the data, analysis to evaluate the program's performance against established KPIs, all that can allow for better interpretation of the results to really gain insights into the program's effectiveness, into the strength of the program, and as we seek areas for improvement. And lastly, in addition to sharing the findings and the outcomes of the measurement plan with relevant stakeholders, we'll really want to be utilizing the insights gained from data analysis to continuously improve the patient support program. So you're implementing these necessary adjustments based on data-driven decisions to enhance patient outcomes, and you're ultimately seeking program success. So leading indicators for patient engagement are metrics or data points that precedes a specific outcome. So in the context of patient support programs, leading indicators are early signals that can help assess the program's potential success or effectiveness before the outcomes are measured. And what I like about that is you're ultimately looking at how the program is doing, but you're not yet at your final results. You're able to adjust accordingly. So many of the leading indicators fall into the category of activity data, often interchangeably referred to as engagement data. And this provides insight into how successful the patient engagement program is at reaching and providing support to patients. So common metrics upfront at the start of a program journey include perhaps the volume of patients that are received into that program, who are then really live connected and engaged with to discuss the support that's there for them. And really, on an ongoing basis, you're also looking at monitoring active participation rates of those patients in the program. So how are they engaging over time? That's what you're looking at. And those metrics that kind of ladder up to, as examples, like a connection rate, how often are you able to connect with that patient? What about the amount of time you're talking to them and engaging with them? What about open or click rates, if the intervention is digital? So those are some of the topics that can help provide good insight into how a patient is continuing to be engaged in the program. And to that end, continuation rates of patients being in the program, along that journey can really provide a good indication as to their interest level, really showing drop-off points and opportunities for improvement, especially when you're capturing program discontinuation rates from patients. In addition to activity data, other leading indicators beyond this engagement include the patient's confidence, maybe the patient's knowledge level of a certain therapeutic area, maybe even their motivation or their satisfaction of the program itself. So understanding how patients are progressing in these four areas through the support is really, it's being provided in a patient support program. And that can be very strong. It can be a strong way to measure the leading indicators to ultimately the outcomes and all the success that we want to see from these programs. Improved medication outcomes will result from increased confidence, knowledge, motivation, and satisfaction. So those are really four important points that we want to look at as we're looking at leading indicators. Specifically, when patients gain knowledge and understanding of their condition and their treatment, they feel more empowered to manage their health effectively. And as they see greater value in their treatment, they're more likely to start that treatment and more likely to stay on that treatment and really follow the lifestyle recommendations that go with that. And at the same time, increased confidence is proven to lead to a greater sense of control over a patient's prescribed regimen. Confidence can help to alleviate fear and anxiety that the patient may have, perhaps at diagnosis and perhaps as they're taking their medication. They can identify and overcome challenges, can make a patient more resilient to potential obstacles that they might see in the future. And increased motivation can often come from a sense of achievement. So positive reinforcement and encouragement can provide patients with the hope and ability to cope with the burdens of a disease and treatment management.
So, if patients have a high level of satisfaction in a program, then they might remain more active and engaged and continue to get the support they need to ensure immediate and sustained success.
That is correct. And lastly, to go with that, so the high levels of satisfaction in a program ensure that patients remain active and they continue to get the support that they require to ensure that immediate and that sustained success. Now, while leading indicators provide signals, the most robust measurement studies are looking at lagging indicators for performance. So these are the KPIs that ladder up to the main goals of the program, and can often be translated into an actual financial benefit, a business outcome, impact, for a pharma company. And these examples could include some significant aspects like reducing the abandonment or the increased first fill of a program. So helping more patients to actually get that first fill. It also could be helping the patient stay on longer through improved persistence, just helping them continue to fill their medication and obviously, see success by it. Other ways to look at lagging measurements and indicators would be superior experience, making sure that they're having a positive experience when they're on their medication. And we're often using an NPS score for that, Net Promoter Score, and we'll talk a little more about that, which determines the likelihood of a patient recommending the program to others. We also want to look at reduction in costs by evaluating the overall healthcare costs, like hospitalization rates, for instance. How can we take those costs down because the patient is doing the thing that they're supposed to do by taking their medication? And lastly, a big piece of this, the biggest piece, is the quality of life. Patient-reported outcomes. These are used to measure the impact of the patient's health condition and really the treatment on their overall quality of life. So unlike traditional clinical measures that focus solely on disease-specific outcomes, these reported outcomes by patients are capturing the patient's perspective, their subjective experiences, and really well-being in relation to their health and treatment. So first and foremost, using a patient engagement solutions platforms, tools, and systems can be a very highly effective way to collect data from programs, perhaps in a more automated and kind of passive manner. So not requiring the effort from the personnel who's supporting the patient or even the patient themselves. So really looking at a kind of automated aspect of how we're receiving this feedback. And many of the leading program and platform tools can track a variety of patient engagement and activity metrics, some of which we just spoke about. And this data can really give great insight into things like patient enrollment, how many patients are enrolling in a program, their interaction, their engagement levels, their usage patterns, their participation, how are they continuing on the program. So sophisticated systems can also delineate the engagement data that's based on whether it's human support or it's automated digital support. And another effective data collection method are surveys that we'll talk about.
What types of surveys would you recommend for this?
Yeah, there are two types that we can utilize here, Megan. So we'll look at digital surveys and then human-led surveys. So digital surveys are those that are delivered, think like automated fashion to a patient. So they're helpful when looking to measure certain patient satisfaction metrics, since those are data points that can be perhaps biased by a human. Digital ensures that the responses will remain anonymous, confidential, and encourages honesty and candid feedback. Digital surveys also enable prompt and efficient collection of patient feedback, on their experiences, so it can be easier from that standpoint for a patient. And then this feedback also helps assess patient satisfaction, identify program strengths and weaknesses, and gather suggestions for the program. So that's digital. But then if we look at human-led surveys, are those that are conducted by really the personnel that's supporting the patient. Think like a clinical nurse educator, and can offer more in-depth insights into patient experiences, challenges, and even the motivations behind those patients. And these are useful to utilize when seeking to understand changes and progress of a patient's confidence, knowledge, motivation, and satisfaction, those 4 points that we talked about. And the reason human-led could be better is for those leading indicators is because this information can be nuanced and difficult to obtain through a digital survey. And capturing the information also enables the personnel to support the patient and kind of adapt to the support as they're listening and learning from that patient.
What are some best practices for surveying patients?
Yeah, so a few of the best practices, that we've found in surveying, whether it's executed digitally or human-led, are to use plain language. So make it as easy to understand from a language standpoint as possible. We want to ensure that all patients can comprehend and respond accurately. We also want to avoid leading questions that may prompt or bias to some degree, or might bias a respondent towards a particular response. And then looking at like mixed closed-ended questions, like mixing that up with like the open-ended questions, so you can gather both. Maybe it's the quantitative as well as the qualitative insights. Open-ended questions allow patients to express their thoughts in their own words. It really depends, obviously, when you're going to use both of those. And finally, most often used to measure these lagging indicators is going to be RX prescription data, as well as claims data analysis. So while most solution providers out there won't actually have access to this, there are many partners like leading research and data firms that do, like IQVIA and ZS. They're two examples, and they can kind of execute these types of data collection methods, and you're able to partner with them. And the script analysis, like the RX analysis, provides data on prescription fill and refill patterns that are taking place. And so it's offering this objective measurement of treatment, onboarding, adherence, and persistence. And then the medical claim side can reveal patterns in healthcare utilization, such as hospitalization, emergency room visits. It can help assess the program's impact on reducing those healthcare resources and utilization. Regardless of the data collection methods and tools that are used, it's important to ensure that they all comply with relevant data privacy and security regulations. That includes HIPAA, for instance. Really, we're just looking to protect patient information. That's one of the major keys here. So additionally, obtaining information consent from patients as part of their enrollment into these programs is going to be absolutely essential, required, when collecting patients' personal health data, for research or even program evaluation purposes. So just something for us to consider. So this is an example of an abandonment analysis that was completed by IQVIA. Again, they're one of the leading research firms, data firms in our space. This is a specific patient engagement program. And IQVIA was evaluating the first fill rate of patients that received support through a pharma patient engagement program. And this was after they received the therapy. So it's once they received the therapy, they received support, did they make it to their first fill? That's what this is showing. And in orange is the test group. And then those patients that got the doctor prescribed the therapy, but they did not receive support, and it's comparing them, and they're the control group. Okay, so to only evaluate the impact of the program and no other factors, IQVIA utilized a one-to-one matching methodology. So they paired each patient in a test group with a patient in the control group, and they looked at similar factors that included the payer type, like health insurance type, the out-of-pocket cost, and there's other variables as well. So what this chart shows is that the first fill rate for the patients who received the support, that's in orange, and it shows that compared to the blue, which is the patients that didn't receive the support. So on the far right, you can see the overall result. This patient engagement program drove a 10% increase in first fill rates versus what would have happened without the patient engagement program in place, who saw 10% less. So the result was statistically significant at a 95% level, according to IQVIA. And what's more interesting is the fact that when you evaluate patient cohort that's based on out-of-pocket costs, so copay costs in this case, that the patient is paying for each medication, even for those patients that paid $0 copay, $0 copay, the patients in the support program still had a higher first rate fill. It was higher by 7% than those patients that didn't receive the support. So this demonstrates that the cost is not only factored and influenced by the patient's concern around costs. It's also considering other issues that might be going on, other burdens that the patient may be facing. So it's just interesting that we saw this type of analysis. It shows how important support is. So overall, this type of analysis is really key to understanding one of those primary KPIs that we talked about, which is reducing abandonment and increasing that first fill. And this is the reason that reports like this and KPIs like this are really the gold standard in terms of the quality of how we want to look at these patient support programs. Like, this is such an important aspect if we're looking at the business impact of a patient support program. So now, in addition to substantiating the quantitative impact, it's helpful to understand the main drivers leading the patient engagement program to reduce the abandonment to this degree. And while there are many factors to consider, the meaningful difference really includes a few points that I'll go over here. The first is the immediate connection. And so what I mean by that is, based on a solution design of a patient support program, and whoever the patient support resource that will be providing support to the patient, it's important that they are reaching out to the patient and connecting with the patient within hours of the patient being prescribed the medication. So it's that quick connection, that quick engagement that's really key. And this requires capturing the appropriate patient consent and obviously contact information, while also transferring data through API connections. This setup ensures that there's a limited time that a patient has between the doctor visit and really meeting the individual, from a direct standpoint, that will really help them to get them onboarded onto their treatment regimen. The second point that's really important is the importance of addressing the non-financial barriers, what we just talked about before. Of course, one of the biggest drivers of abandonment of RX is cost. However, an effective hub program can really address that.
And there can be other barriers for patients as well, correct?
Yes, there are numerous other barriers that patients face, whether getting on their medication or staying on their medication. And that could be emotional burden of coping with the diagnosis, or coping with the progression of their disease, or the lack of motivation. We deal with patients that are isolated often, and there's really a lack of understanding of the disease and product, to really understand and recognize the importance of starting on the medication. So yeah, definitely other factors to consider there. And a patient engagement program that is designed to get to these clinical, logistical, and emotional burdens and barriers early on, really to set expectations and really to provide knowledge that's required and help better the confidence that patients have. Like, all of that is just really critical to help patients get to that first fill. Now, lastly, there's other factors here, other things we need to consider. The use of live triage support is really important. So pharma companies invest in many ways. There's services that they provide that even goes beyond patient engagement, such as the use of their hub that can really help with the financial and access types of support that patients need, as well as a pharmacy, especially pharmacies, retail pharmacies, things like that can help to, obviously, the patient can receive their medication and they can get additional support there. So ensuring that the support personnel from these different stakeholders, really need to be on the front lines, and really have access to a full view of the patient's profile and understand their ability to afford and access their medication. All this is really critical to ensuring transparency and being able to provide the patient with support, if these issues do arise. Okay, so we talked about abandonment to the first bill. Now we're going to talk about persistency, and that is duration on therapy, staying on your therapy. And this is an example of persistency and an analysis that was completed also by a pharma company, utilizing third-party data metrics. And for this specific patient engagement program, the company's analytics team evaluated persistency rate of the moment the patient started the therapy, so they actually got the fill, and then how did they do over time, and what type of support did they receive over time. So what we're looking at is, in the orange are those patients that were supported in a patient support program, and then in that light brown are those patients that were not supported in a patient support program. So they're the control group. To really evaluate the impact of this particular program, this real-world program, and no other factors, the client utilized a one-to-one matching methodology, like the IQVIA analysis we just looked at. So they paired each patient in the test group. Again, that's the light brown. The test group, which is the orange, versus the control group, which is the light brown. And they looked at similar factors like age, gender, payer type, things like that. And what this graph shows is that starting with the second fill, which is at day 30, all the way through day 360 on the therapy, and patients in the support program filled at a higher rate, or said another way, they were more persistent than those patients that were not in the support program. So specifically looking at the separation between the test and control, you'll see that there's an immediate impact, where on the end of the first month, 8% more patients are persistent to therapy with this support program versus those that were not. And then if you look all the way down, month 12, 27% more patients were persistent in staying on their therapy due to the support versus those that were not getting the support. All right, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So like the abandonment impact, we've also evaluated proven drivers of improved persistency. So how have we gotten there? So one of the big drivers is delivering a personalized journey. So programs that utilize an approach that is not the one size fits all, but obviously is much more personalized, are going to demonstrate larger improvements on adherence, because they're relevant to the patient's lives and health conditions. And this relevancy, makes patients feel that the support is designed for them, so that will help them lead to higher engagement levels and adherence as well. And this approach, it cultivates a sense of partnership between the patient and the pharma industry. It fosters a sense of trust and rapport, where patients feel that their needs are understood and valued, and really encouraging them to adhere to their treatment recommendations.
So this approach then cultivates a sense of partnership between patients and the pharma industry.
That is correct, Megan, and it is so critical nowadays. It fosters that sense of trust, rapport, like I mentioned. Patients feel like their needs are being met. They're being, they're being understood. There's empathy there. And with the evolution of personalized patient engagement, it was quickly realized that just upfront personalization of a patient support program actually isn't even enough. The fact of the matter is that the patient's adherence risk, their needs, their behavior, et cetera, really change, and they evolve, and they ebb and flow throughout the time on therapy. So given that we know these things aren't static, we need to use this knowledge to maximize the impact of patient engagement, so that the support not only has to be personalized, but it also has to be dynamic on an ongoing basis. So it's evolving as time goes on. It's shaping itself. For example, if a patient is progressing through their support journey quicker than anticipated, we may take back some of the human connection, the human engagement, and increase some of the digital engagement, maybe some of the self-serve engagement. Or on the flip side, maybe a patient, we're monitoring their Apple Watch, health levels, and we see that data on there is changing drastically from their baseline levels. Well, that's likely a signal that there's a change in status of the patient and that they may need more support. So maybe it's time to give them more human-based support in that case. So it really depends on the situation, but that's why we need to make sure it's not just personalizing it once, it's continuing to personalize as the patient is evolving. And lastly, this is also important for the persistency, the ongoing, is providing a patient with a primary point of contact in that model. It really streamlines the patient experience, and many companies are starting to leverage this. I should just say many companies are just doing this, versus having siloed constituents engage with the patient at different points in time, and the patient's like, wait, who am I talking to? It's really the primary point of contact model that we're seeing more of, and often starts to engage around the time of the RX, and then it kind of stays with the patient, that support, ongoing as the patient is managing their therapy. The final lagging indicator metric that we'll look at is NPS. And I talked about this earlier. This is Net Promoter Score, and it's a valuable metric because it's easy to understand and provides a very clear indication of a patient's experience in the therapy regimen. So the NPS survey, it's executed digitally to remove bias, typically consists of a single question. So on a scale of 0 to 10, and this is an example, how likely are you to recommend company, product, service to a friend or a colleague? So based on the responses that a patient might give to these survey questions, the responses are categorized into 3 different groups. So the first are promoters. These are what you look for, and they get a score of 9 to 10. The second are passives, and they get a score of 7 to 8. And then the third are detractors. They get a score of 0 to 6. The final NPS can then range from negative 100 to positive 100. So a positive NPS indicates that there are more promoters than detractors, while a negative NPS suggests the opposite. And generally, an NPS higher than 50 signals a very positive patient sentiment. As an example, Apple's NPS score is 72. I think we'd all agree Apple does a good job. So this metric becomes very useful for pharma companies because currently the NPS in the pharma industry is lacking. In fact, a recent study of 20 pharma companies, large and small, the NPS average of the industry is hovering around 6. That puts pharma online with airline and insurance industries. So not great. All right, moving on. A few of the key drivers of NPS in patient engagement programs are, first, the combination of both the human and the digital support. So they offer complementary benefits when we use them together, and it demonstrates that patient experience is improving. So patients seek human connection to build trust and experience the empathy that's really executed when managing a complex therapy, for a chronic disease. But at the same time, patients also want convenience, and they want easy to access support. And that very much can be enabled through digital tools and self-serve applications. So really looking at both sides and having both sides as an option is an ideal situation for a patient. And this really, ensuring the patient engagement program is expanding and supporting patients from a holistic manner is really critical here. So just servicing them from a financial needs standpoint or just a clinical needs standpoint isn't always sufficient, especially with complex therapies. So in order for patients to feel empowered and really in control of their health and experience, they are looking to get support that expands into areas of wellness, into areas of emotion or mental health or other critical areas like that.
That makes sense, especially people with serious illnesses can benefit from a variety of types of support.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And lastly, another kind of proven driver to this is the importance of two-way connection. So it's not just someone or something reaching out to the patient every time, but the patient having an opportunity to reach out when they have issues. They can be proactive. Patients knowing that they can reach out to the person who's really their champion and for support when needed, and that helps to increase their satisfaction and obviously can help to increase the the efficacy of a medication and the overall outcome that they may get. So all the data that's being collected for the delivery of patient engagement programs and measurement of the impact that we've been discussing are beginning to power a host of innovative solutions that many leading patient engagement providers are incorporating today into their programs for biopharma companies. So the three that have begun to see much broader adoption include predictive models, and these are statistical models that we use really with a variety of patient data, demographic, psychographic, medical history, et cetera, to make predictions about future patient outcomes and behaviors and needs that the patients may have. So the model is designed to analyze these patterns and relationships within the data and then apply those patterns to new data to really make informed predictions. The context of patient support programs with predictive models is really to aim to anticipate the patient need and optimize the intervention so that it's then individualized, personalized to that patient. Secondly, are next best action engines. These machine learning applications use advanced algorithms and data analytics that suggest the most appropriate and personalized course of action for a specific situation or individual at that given point in time. Or said another way, an intervention. It provides like the right time for that intervention for that right person. And lastly, the third point is NLP, natural language processing insights. And these refer to insights that are gleaned from valuable information and patterns that are extracted from unstructured text data. So NLP is a subfield of AI, of artificial intelligence, that focuses on the interaction between computers and human language. So it enables machines to understand, enables them to interpret and really generate human language, which then allows for the analysis of vast amounts of text data that can be captured through the delivery and measurement of patient engagement programs. So by combining program data with compliantly available patient data, predictive models, first point I made, can be powered to help inform greater personalization. And we can do that within these patient engagement programs. It can better efficacy, efficiency. So common predictive models that are being leveraged by leading patient engagement companies today include the following. We look at adherence risk models. This is a predictive model that assesses the likelihood of a patient being non-adherent to their prescription medication. And this is built using various patient-related factors to estimate the probability of non-adherence. It allows the solution provider to deliver the patient engagement program to focus on patients at higher risk and tailor interventions to improve adherence. A high literacy model is a framework designed to assess an individual's ability to obtain, process, and understand basic health information and services to make informed decisions about their health. And lastly, with a continued focus on addressing SDOH, social determinants of health, assessment in a patient support program is a systematic evaluation on social and environmental factors that really influence a patient's health and well-being. And SDOH are the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. And they encompass various factors such as socioeconomic status, their education, employment status, housing, access to healthcare, and even community support as well. And these predictive models, combined with patient preferences and the patient's learning style, can really influence things like the number of interventions and the timing of interventions, the topics that are covered in each of those interventions, or really the format, the channel of communication, how we're communicating. So advanced models that can iterate in real time can also inform these non-planned interventions or just-in-time interventions, which really can help to drive greater impact. So to enable this dynamic patient engagement, solution providers are tapping into a host of different real-time and even real-world data sources that help guide how the patient engagement is being provided and adapted to patients.
What are some ways the pharma company or vendor can gather that information?
Yeah, so examples of some of these data sources that could include patient feedback, patient progress, their sentiment analysis that you can glean from conversations, new information that's coming from other solution providers, maybe in your PSP, or even patient-generated health data from wearables like the Apple Watch I was mentioning, or maybe mobile apps like Noom. Given we know things that aren't static, we really maximize the impact of patient engagement. And support not only has to be personalized upfront through predictive models like we've talked about, but it also has to be dynamic. We talked about that. Has to be evolving, really on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So machine learning, next best action, and also known as MBA, in patient support, refers to the application of artificial intelligence to determine the most suitable and personalized course of action for each individual patient at any given point in time. So it helps the personnel providing the patient engagement, really at the solution provider level, such as like a clinical nurse educator, to deliver timely and targeted support, interventions, or recommendations to patients. So this tool can also be used to generate automated interventions that are delivered from the system, or even inform how the patient journey design should be adapted. And solution providers with this capability, that's implemented into their platform, are using the data that is already being collected for the program, either for the delivery and or the measurement, and then they're processing it. And this means they're cleaning it, transforming it, they're preparing it in a suitable format for AI algorithms. And from there, advanced machine learning algorithms such as reinforcement learning, decision trees, or deep learning models are trained on all of the historical data that is then being shared. So the models learn from past patient interactions and outcomes to identify patterns and associations. And then as new patient data becomes available, the MBA recommendation and AI engine is continuously updating its predictions and generates real-time recommendations. And these recommendations can be specific actions for instance, a clinical nurse educator, or personalized automated interventions that can be delivered to a patient. And lastly, NLP, natural language processing. These insights are really known as interaction and analytics. And what we're talking about is the high volume and variety of data that is being captured through patient engagement programs already that to date has been difficult to make actionable. So now with natural language processing, again, a form of AI technology, you can really much better capture the voice of the patient at scale by mining all of this data and reporting it in a clear way. And the benefit of natural language processing is that it can be applied to structured and unstructured data across many silos. It already, it's helping companies create essentially a voice of the market, a feedback loop for key business areas such as medical affairs, market access does it, sales teams, brand teams, so on and so forth. And by using NLP to mine data captured from patient engagement programs, and this can come from call recordings, the types of insights that can be captured and segmented by type of patient, or it can be at time in the therapy progression, are things like the key topics being discussed with patients, maybe the sentiment analysis of patients, and even the ability to run ad hoc queries on the data if there are specific strategic questions that need to be addressed. And with the interaction analytics with NLP, brands now get a level of context that often gets missed, that used to always get missed. So today, patient engagement programs report things like activity data, self-reported patient adherence data, and can be measured using test versus control comparison of persistency. So really just helping to help evolve the way in which pharma is learning more about key actions that are going on in patient support programs and about their patients as well. All right. Well, as we close out, just want to talk a few more points here, and again, want to thank everyone for their time. The measurement of patient engagement programs and the utilization of really innovative tools to extract more of this value from data are really paramount in today's healthcare landscape. And as we strive to enhance patient outcomes, as we want to improve the healthcare experience and really optimize resource allocation effectively, a data-driven approach becomes indispensable. By effectively measuring patient engagement programs like we discussed, we can gain these valuable insights into the impact of these programs. We can identify the successful aspects of the strategy. We can pinpoint areas that need to be refined so we can continue evolving. And data-driven evaluation allows us to make evidence-based decisions, ensures that our high efforts align with patient needs and expectations. And furthermore, innovative tools and technologies enable us to harness the power of data in unprecedented ways. Leveraging AI, data analytics, machine learning, we can unlock hidden patterns and correlations, predicting patient behavior and healthcare trends. And these tools empower us to proactively address patient needs, personalized care, and deliver interventions precisely when they're most effective. So as we look into the future, let us embrace the potential of data-driven approaches and innovative tools in patient engagement. And together we can create a healthcare landscape that not only improves patient outcomes, but also fosters a stronger and more connected healthcare ecosystem. And through our commitment to data-driven excellence, we can truly make a lasting impact on patient lives and the healthcare community at large. Thank you so much for your time, and let us embark on this transformative journey together.
Thank you, Josh. That was a very thorough presentation on an important subject.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone's time. Please do reach out with any questions you may have. We'd love to, share more about VMS, how we partner with biopharmaceutical companies, how we're helping to reimagine the patient experience and really be at the forefront of our approach to measuring and evaluating and really evaluating and validating the impact of our clients' investments. You can reach out to us at businessdevelopment@vmsbiomarketing.com. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh, for that insightful presentation. We are all out of time for today, but before we sign off, I just wanted to thank you, our audience, for joining today as well. This webinar will be available on demand if you want to review anything that was discussed today. Thanks again for watching.